Picture this. It's the late 1970s. British cinema is embracing a unique mix of cheeky humour, slapstick, and lighthearted misadventures. Among the films of the time, one stands out for its playful take on classic detective stories, Adventures of a Private Eye. If you've never heard of it, don't worry. You're in for a ride as we uncover the plot, characters, memorable moments, and everything else that makes this film a cult classic of its era. The film was released in 1977 and was part of a trilogy of comedy capers, following Adventures of a Taxi Driver, 1976, and preceding Adventures of a Plumber's Mate, 1978. Directed by Stanley Long, a filmmaker well-versed in light-hearted British comedies, this movie takes a tongue-in-cheek approach to the private detective genre. The story follows Bob West, played by Christopher Neal, a well-meaning but inexperienced assistant to top private investigator Judd Blake, portrayed by none other than Doctor Who legend Jon Pertwee. When Blake is called away on urgent business, Bob is left in charge of the agency, a dream come true for an aspiring detective like him. Of course, it doesn't take long before he lands a big case. Enter Laura Sutton, a glamorous former model played by Suzy Kendall, who seeks Bob's help in retrieving some rather compromising photographs being used to blackmail her. Seeing his chance to prove himself, Bob takes on the case, but things quickly spiral out of control. From shady criminals to eccentric characters, he stumbles through a series of bizarre and comical situations, all while trying to keep up the illusion that he knows what he's doing. The supporting cast is packed with recognisable names from British cinema and television at the time. Harry H. Corbett, best known for Steptoe and Son, plays Sydney, a shifty character who adds to the chaos. The legendary Diana Dors, often considered Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe, appears as Mrs. Horne, bringing her signature blend of charm and mischief. The film also features comedy stalwarts like Liz Fraser, Irene E. Handel, and Ian Lavender, best known for Dad's Army. With such an ensemble, the film leans heavily on comedic performances to keep the story engaging. Now, let's talk about some of the most memorable moments. One standout scene has Bob going undercover at a burlesque club. To blend in, he disguises himself as a performer, complete with a wig and a feather boa, and ends up being mistaken for an actual dancer. What follows is a hilariously awkward stage performance that leaves both the audience and Bob in stitches. Another highlight is the classic hiding in the closet sequence, a staple of farcical comedy. Bob, trying to avoid being caught in a compromising situation, ends up squeezed into a tiny wardrobe, while two unsuspecting characters carry on a conversation outside. The tension builds as he struggles to stay hidden, leading to an inevitable and perfectly timed reveal. The film was shot in various locations around England, adding a distinctly British charm to its setting. One key filming location was West Byfleet Station in Woking, Surrey, where Bob first encounters Laura. The mix of real-world locations and studio sets helps ground the film's over-the-top antics in a believable environment. In terms of production, Adventures of a Private Eye was made on a relatively modest budget, like many British comedies of the time. However, the producers made the most of their resources, relying on a strong cast and witty dialogue to carry the film, rather than expensive set pieces or special effects. Despite its low budget, it managed to attract audiences looking for a fun and easygoing cinema experience. When the film hit theatres, it received a mixed response. Critics weren't exactly singing its praises, but audiences looking for a light-hearted and playful film found plenty to enjoy. The Monthly Film Bulletin noted that while the film avoided being too risque, it still leaned heavily on its cheeky humour. They also complimented Christopher Neal's energetic performance, saying he brought a natural and lively charm to the role. On the other hand, the Radio Times Guide to Films was far less kind, giving it just 1 out of 5 stars. They dismissed it as a predictable romp, relying too much on familiar comedic setups. But let's be honest, this film was never aiming to be high art. It was designed to be a fun, light-hearted escape, and in that sense, it delivered exactly what it promised. Over time, Adventures of a Private Eye has become something of a cult classic. While it might not be as widely remembered as some of its contemporaries, it remains an interesting snapshot of British cinema in the 1970s. The humour, the performances, and the overall playful tone make it a film worth checking out if you're a fan of vintage British comedies. So, is Adventures of a Private Eye a masterpiece? Probably not. But is it an entertaining ride filled with slapstick humour, quirky characters, and a nostalgic charm? Absolutely. Whether you're revisiting it for a dose of 70s nostalgia or discovering it for the first time, there's something undeniably fun about this light-hearted detective caper. Let us know in the comments. Have you seen this film before? What do you think of it? And if you enjoyed this deep dive into a forgotten comedy gem, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.